If you don't know anything about Moscow, Idaho, this video is your crash course. In the next 10 minutes or 5 minutes, if you put me on double speed, you'll go from knowing little to nothing about Moscow to understanding it well enough that you can clearly describe it to your friends and family. Let's do this in 3 parts. The big stuff that people think about when they say Moscow, what Moscow feels like, its vibe or atmosphere, and the practical need-to-knows. I'm Chris Carpenter. I've lived here for over a decade. Professionally, I'm a real estate agent of 10 years experience, which means that I'm talking with Moscow residents and people moving to the area every day. Let's jump into it. Moscow, Idaho is a town of 25,000 people in the Palouse region of north central Idaho. When I say Palouse region, this is what I'm talking about. The area you see covers a good chunk of eastern Washington into the western edge of north central Idaho, claiming some of the most fertile ground in all of America. Moscow is close to the eastern limit of the Palouse, which is great for geographic diversity because the further east you go, the more forest and foothills you'll find interspersed with the farm fields. This backdrop earns Moscow its association with rolling hills of gold and green. In the broader picture of towns in Idaho, when you don't want the sprawling metro of Boise or the destination feel of towns like Coeur d'Alene, Moscow stands out as an Idaho hometown with a family-centric culture at its core. The University of Idaho, which is Idaho's leading research university, finds its home in Moscow, bringing a large student population. It's largely thanks to the U of I presence that Moscow is officially branded as the heart of the arts and the festival city. Those two go hand in hand, and that reputation holds true. Moscow loves its music and performing arts. Everything from homeschool theater groups to college symphony performances, and as you can imagine, everything in between. The arts spill over into many of Moscow's festivals and community events like Rendezvous in the Park, the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival, and live music at our nationally recognized Saturday Summer Farmers Market. Speaking of which, the farmers market definitely requires its own mention. It's a pillar of the community here. People around here are resourceful, and the farmers market is where you get a taste of that local spirit through handcrafted artisan goods, homegrown food, and local art vendors. If you haven't seen it yet, when you look at a voting map, Latah County is known for being a blue dot in a red state, and that's mostly because of Moscow. However, that doesn't mean that Moscow is liberal through and through. There are many different groups and beliefs in Moscow, including a large conservative Christian population. At the same time, despite the opposing beliefs that exist in Moscow, one of the first comments that tourists make is how friendly and welcoming the people are. It's definitely an interesting paradox, but it works. Quick side note, if you're here because you just started looking into new hometown options for your family and Moscow's on your list, I or my team would love to save you hours of research by getting on the phone and answering all the specific questions you have. There's no obligation or pressure with the call, doesn't cost you a thing, and saves you hours of digging. And that brings us straight into what Moscow feels like. I hear the same thing from locals, visitors, students, and blogs. After living here for more than 10 years, I can confirm it's true. Perhaps the number one favorite thing about Moscow is its lively, one-of-a-kind downtown, which is extremely friendly to pedestrians. In Moscow, downtown is your destination for all sorts of fun. That and the friendly residents leave visitors raving over how welcoming Moscow feels. This is where many of the aforementioned festivals, block parties, and farmers markets are held. Even when there isn't an event going on, there are a ton of varied dining spots, coffee shops, and local stores, which are an absolute blast to visit and keep the downtown energy alive. It's almost impossible to talk about Moscow without also mentioning Pullman, Washington, right across the border. One way that Moscow differs from Pullman is in how people tend to describe the college presence. I've heard Pullman described as a town built around a university, whereas Moscow is often described as a town with a university. What's the difference? WSU and student housing take up almost a quarter of the town. They call it College Hill. Driving through or interacting with students is almost unavoidable, whereas the University of Idaho in Moscow is more tucked away. You can happily do all that you need to do without driving through campus. In Pullman, when students leave, so does much of the vitality of the town. Whereas in Moscow, when the students leave, the population goes down. That's probably the main difference you feel. But the local energy and activities stay high throughout the year. At some point in your time in Moscow, you'll get the sense that it's an outdoorsy community. By design, Moscow lends itself to an active outdoor lifestyle for families with kids of all ages. There's no shortage of ball fields, parks, walking paths, and cycling. You also get nearby hiking, mountain biking, off-roading, motorsports, fishing, light kayaking, and so much more. Yeah. Outdoor recreation is a big part of the Moscow vibe. And with that said, let's turn to the practicals. While it wasn't always the case, Moscow has better amenities that make sense for a town of 25,000 people. We have a Home Depot, Target, Walmart, Winco, Petco, Marshalls, Old Navy, not to mention all the smaller local boutiques. It's no Spokane or Boise when it comes to entertainment, but you have more than one option for all your essential needs and beyond. The main industries that keep Moscow's economy up and running are education and healthcare, with leading employers from the area being the University of Idaho, Gritman Medical Center, Pullman Regional Hospital, and Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. Other industries worth mentioning in the area are trade jobs, agriculture, timber, and the startup scene. You'll notice some of those are across the border in Pullman, which is another practical about living here. It's super common to live in Moscow and work in Pullman and vice versa, because it's only a 15-minute drive between the two towns. Since we're on the topic of industries in Moscow, this is a good time to talk about wages and the cost of living too. There's a misconception about Moscow's median household income, which at first glance sits at about $56,000 per year. There's an issue with this figure though. It's taking into account the wages of students in Moscow. To reveal the true story for those who live here year-round, we filter out the student body and focus on family income. And when we do that, the median household income jumps to about $84,000, which goes a lot further. Contributing to the cost of living conversation, we have to consider the cost of goods and the real estate market. Moscow is a bit out of the way from any other prominent locations, which means the cost of goods is a little higher than expected, not as low as they would be in larger cities with tons of easy imports. Similarly, the cost of real estate in Moscow is closer to small destination town prices like Coeur d'Alene. I explain why that is in another video that I'll link for you here. Median single-family home prices in Moscow are currently about $475,000. And with a 20% down payment, that would put your monthly payment at about $2,800 per month. Side note, if you're serious about buying a home in Moscow, right now we have a list of close to 30 homes that we'll be bringing to the market in the next few months. So if you want to be in the loop before everyone else, give us a call or shoot me a text. We'd be happy to help. Back to the video. Finally, the last practical you need to hear about is the weather. You'll have to judge for yourself if the weather here is harsh or mild, because this one is relative to what you personally view as harsh weather. Moscow weather doesn't get too crazy. Every year we'll have maybe 2 weeks in the triple digits in the summer and another 2 weeks when the temperature drops below zero in the winter. You can also count on 3 to 5 months of mostly cloud cover that kind of hangs around from late fall through winter. For some people, it can wear on them more than they anticipate, especially if sunshine is a must for you to feel good. Apart from that, we do get all 4 seasons: sunny summers, beautiful trees changing color in the fall, snowy winters, and reawakening springs. And to wrap up, apart from some flooding around the creeks in Moscow every 4 years or so, we don't have any natural disasters to worry about. That's your Moscow, Idaho crash course. If you want more details on a specific topic, check out our channel where you can watch more Moscow, Idaho videos right now. If this one was helpful to you, then either of these 2 videos on the screen will probably help you out too. So go check those out next.